Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, April 24th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 129 days, the game against Michigan in 220 days. We are continuing our wrap-up of the spring football season. Today, we're going to be letting you hear a little bit more from Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. You've heard from Ryan Day already. You've heard from Chip Kelly already. You've heard from Jim Knowles already. This is going to be the last little piece of that post-spring game interview session. There's a lot of good stuff from Chip Kelly, so we're doing version number 2 of that show. Lots of new stuff, including a bunch of stuff on the quarterback position and when they're going to be naming their starting quarterback and all that kind of stuff. Really interesting stuff from Chip, so I think you're going to enjoy this one. Let's start, though, with the running back position. You know what they've got with Trevion Henderson. You know what they've got with Quinshon Judkins. What about the other 3 guys still left in that room? James Peoples, Sam Williams-Dixon, and T.C. Caffey. What did Chip Kelly see out of those guys during the spring game?
Yeah, James really flashed early for me, not knowing, again, kind of, let's just don't worry about what the background is, where they're from, who they are. Did this guy have this stars, this guy have that stars? They're all Buckeyes, and just how they do it. I think James has got really good feel and vision. He can hit things. I thought Sam did some really good things today. TC is another guy who really came along during the spring. And we're constantly talking in our staff meetings about depth. We're very cognizant of the fact that the playoff situation has changed. So you have to develop that depth. Used to be maybe have a pair and a spare is what everybody says, but I think you may have to have more than that. You're talking about 16, 17 games. You're really going to be tested that way. So I was really happy with how those young guys have come along here in the 15 training sessions that we've had.
We are now more than a week and a half removed from that spring game, and still only 2 Buckeyes have entered the transfer portal so far following that spring game. So Dallin Hayden, we know he's going to Colorado. Cedric Hawkins, we know he's going to UCF. So that's the only 2 guys who go in the portal. None of the 5 quarterbacks in the portal as of the time we're recording this. So when did the coaches feel like they have to need to, let the quarterbacks know where they stand leaving the spring, so the guys, if they know they're really out of it, at least have the option? Did the coaches feel like they really have to be clear on that communication?
Yeah, we'll sit down as a staff and visit and meet on it. And then Ryan, he does an unbelievable job of, I think, all our players understand where they fit and what the picture is, and we'll give them our assessment. This isn't, we're not going to come back, but we do it after every day. They know where they stood after practice 1, after 2, after 3, after 4. We grade everything. They're getting constant feedback in terms of where we are, and then after 15, which we had today. But we can't do it unless you watch the film and can really look at the things, because you may see something, but you're on the sideline. Why did he make that decision? Well, I couldn't really see the field safety from where he was. Okay, now I understand why he made that decision. So, but we'll have meetings with all our players, and that's always been the method. So this week during, between Monday through Friday, we're all scheduled. No one's going on the road to recruiting until after that, but we'll all have player meetings at every position. Offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, safeties, everybody's going to sit down with their position coaches and know where they fit and where we see them.
Now, arguably the biggest question involving the quarterbacks this offseason, when do the coaches feel like they have to know who that starting quarterback is? Do they need to figure it out now? Do they have time to figure it out in fall camp? Can they wait right up until the week of the game against Akron like they did in 2015? That didn't work out all that well, so probably not quite that long. But when does the coaching staff feel like they need to have that starting quarterback named, and what's going to determine who that is?
Well, between now and whatever then is, we're not allowed as coaches to go back out and practice with them. In college football, you get 15 training sessions in the off season, and then they'll go back to working with Mick in the weight room and getting bigger, getting faster, getting stronger. They'll have organized activities themselves. And they do a really good job of that. But once there's a football out, we're not allowed to be there to evaluate and even assess. So they're really, from a football standpoint, are on their own until August. So you always want to do it earlier. But I also believe every time I've been involved in this is that it kind of happens organically and authentically, because the players know. And if you say, hey, we decided we're going to be with Joe, and they all think it's Tim, they know. They're in the locker room with him every day. Players understand, who they feel is the guy, and most of the time the decision is very obvious, when you just say, hey, this is where we are with it, but there's that timetable thing. I don't I can't give you an exact timetable on that. So
one of the big standouts this spring for the Buckeyes was true freshman quarterback Julian Sayin. He's probably not going to be the starter, but that's okay. He seems like he is way ahead of where a lot of people were expecting him to be before the start of the spring. So how long does it take for the game to kind of slow down for a young quarterback like Julian Sayin?
I think it depends on the individual. I've had some kids where early, you were like, wow. Marcus Mariota was like that. I remember vividly second practice, and he got to the fifth read in the progression and threw it out here, and it was a big game. And I asked him why. I do that all. I asked why because I just want to understand it. And I said, why did you do that? And he goes, I don't know what we call that defense, but there was like a lot of guys over there, and it didn't seem like there was anybody over there. But for him to process it that fast, and he was right. And he came back the other day, and that was cover 6 the other day, Coach. I learned what you guys call the coverages. But it all happens differently. I've got guys that for 2 years seem like they're just, they're really struggling, and then the light bulb goes off and you go, whoa, like they got it. So everybody has different learning styles. Our job in the evaluation process is to identify those learning styles. So, are they a cognitive learner? Are they an auditory learner? Do they learn by feel? Is it more a feel guy? A more film guy? It's all different, and I think we have to keep poking and prodding. And for us as coaches, that's the challenge too: is what is their best learning style, and how can we convey it? Because education basically is just a transportation of knowledge. But it really doesn't matter what I know or what Ryan knows. It matters what they know. So that's always kind of what we're working on and studying and thinking about, and kind of where we are and how much can they handle, and then how much is too much. Because this may be a great play. I agree 100%. But if he doesn't feel it's a good play, then why is it in? You know what I mean? And that's this whole feeling out process that they're learning us and we're learning them. So.
It has been a few years since Ohio State's starting quarterback has really been let's say a good runner. Justin Fields obviously was that. C.J. Stroud really didn't run a lot. Kyle McCord really didn't run a lot. All 5 of the quarterbacks on the roster right now, they can all run at least a little bit. So what does Chip Kelly like about having running quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think a running quarterback causes problems for a defense. So when plays break down, the unscheduled plays, if you just go back to the recent Super Bowl, on that last drive, the 2 big plays were Mahomes' run. But Patrick Mahomes is not a runner. Andy's not calling design quarterback runs for Pat. But when the defense matches up and plays 2-man and turns their back to the quarterback, well, maybe the best decision is to take off. The second one he took off, I'm like, he may score. A lot of guys go and they want a hook slide. And there's times where you have to understand if you do have a running quarterback, and we talk about the best ability is availability. You're not lowering your shoulder and taking people on, but we are always looking for quarterbacks that have the ability to run. We're not looking for running backs that can throw. So you're not going to see us 20 times a game we're running the quarterback. There are people that run it offensive styles and are really successful with it, but with this group we have right now, that's not. Now, they can hurt you with the feet. Will did it when he was at K-State. Obviously, Devin took off a couple times today. Air took off a couple times today. Lincoln's a really, really good athlete. Julian can run, but, we're not calling design quarterback runs. You're not going to see, a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Hayes and the legacy that he left here. The straight T is about as far as we go. We are not going single wing. So we are not going to snap it and run quarterback ISO and quarterback power. So, but it's another weapon, and if it also keeps defenses honest. If your defensive end is going to continue to bend, then the quarterback pulls it and he's on the edge and he's gaining first downs. Well, then the defensive end has to stay outside and contain the quarterback. Well, then we can run the ball out and hand the ball off. Sometimes in our running game, our quarterback really is a blocker. He's responsible for a defender. If the defender is cheating and fitting in on the run, well, then his responsibility is to make the defense be honest. And that's really, Air did that a couple times today. And we had a block, the safety was sticking his face in there, so Air took off around the edge. What happens the next play? The defense is wider. Then what do we get to do? We get a chance to hand the ball off to the running back.
That'll do it for today. I really do enjoy hearing Chip Kelly talk about football. Has some interesting insights and some interesting thoughts on a lot of different things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one as well. We'll be back with another episode, of course, tomorrow. New episodes of the Buckeye Weekly podcast this week as well. Lots of stuff to talk about around the Ohio State program, potentially the transfer portal, potentially some recruiting news coming, all sorts of fun stuff. We're talking about that all as well at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. We're our whole team of X's and O's gurus, making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.